You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King with an occasional focus on his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about all things that serve the King. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and follow us on every level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and with me today, as usual, is Tiny. How's it going, Tiny?
Good, man.
Good. Are you excited for some Tower Junkies action tonight?
Always, bro.
Yes. And what are we going to be doing today on the podcast, Tiny?
We will be reviewing Stephen King's novel Revival.
Yes.
Which came out last year, 2019?
No. Revival came out in like 2008.
Fuck, really?
Yeah. Let me actually verify that because I am woefully unprepared for this episode, which is a great thing to say on a podcast where...
A huge King fan.
Yeah.
I don't know when his book's come out, though. You sure it was like 1992? I mean, I feel like... I don't know.
I think it was like 1976.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, it's been... Well, maybe not 2008. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Okay.
2014.
It was 2014. Nice.
I thought it was a 20-teens.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I took the time to load this up because we do have Stephen King news. Pretty big Stephen King news, so that's good. Are you aware of this news? That's the question that I want to pose to Mr. Tiny.
Maybe not.
You would almost have to be...
Well, I have to know what the news is to know if I'm aware of it.
You would have to. Okay, so I've stalled enough. I've got... Because I was bringing up something for later in the episode. Okay, so today on the show we're going to be reviewing Revival for the 2014 novel from Stephen King. Super excited to talk to you about that, Tiny.
Mm-hmm.
But first we've got some Stephen King news and maybe a check-in. Do you have any check-ins?
Still reading Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow.
Okay.
So freaking long.
Do you have any Stephen King check-ins?
I don't.
Okay. What is your favorite rap battle so far?
Like from the play?
No, from the book.
Like where he wants to keep him out of war with France.
Oh yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got nothing. How is it going though? By the way,
it's good. The guy's so much fucking detail. It's crazy. I have 5 hours left.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah,
we're closing in
out of 36.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What are you listening to next? Misery?
I don't know. Probably Misery. I think.
Good. Then we can do Misery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could we can review Misery, or we can commiserate on it.
Be in misery.
Yeah. And then we also need to find time to watch and review the Stand,
the series,
90s miniseries.
Yes.
To bank.
Trizzles.
Still waiting for those, for that 2020 announcement.
I know.
Just really,
They finished it, right? They filmed it.
I don't know if they still have posts to do.
But I would think they'd be able to do the post.
Well, a lot of post-production companies were shutting down because of the virus.
I guess, I don't know, maybe you can't do that remotely.
Yeah. But also, they would have said something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Because, TV is huge right now, because people are home,
Right.
They can't go out and watch movies, so they're staying home and watching shit, so...
Well, and also, CBS All Access has kind of been dragging their feet anyway, because, they haven't renewed The Twilight Zone yet.
No.
Which has me a little anxious, because I really want them to renew The Twilight Zone for Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing I keep thinking is that the Twilight Zone Twitter account is still posting, so they're still paying people for social media to post social media for the show, and so they still have people on the payroll for the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And then I say that, and then I remember that when Glenn Mazzara. Wow. I remember that Glenn Mazzara had tweeted about writing scripts and stuff, and I was like, oh, that must mean that Amazon ordered more scripts for the Dark Tower. And we all know how that went.
I guess I do sort of have a Stephen King check-in.
Okay.
I listened to the Kingcast episode with Elijah Wood.
Yes.
About Misery.
Yep.
Man, I knew I liked Elijah Wood as an actor. I didn't have much of a picture of him as a person.
Right.
But he was just like so laid back and candid. Like this just it felt like such a genuine conversation.
Yes.
That guy is awesome.
I could listen to those three guys talk
about
anything for hours.
I know, right?
And I listen. So sometimes on occasion on a Saturday morning, I will go to Dunkin' Donuts and get an iced coffee and sometimes a breakfast sandwich or sometimes maybe a couple donuts. And then I'll just kind of sit in my car and eat and drink and listen to podcasts and audiobooks.
Right.
So I did that, but I parked in a movie theater parking lot because I had to put in the order for the app for it and everything.
Right.
And I just kind of sat there and I was listening to it. I was like, this is so engaging and so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's just such an intelligent, articulate person and a total fan.
Yes.
Of things. Just so down to earth.
He is. Mike and I talked about this after he listened to that episode of Kingcast, but Elijah Wood is someone who, I respect a lot because he's someone who was in the industry and made a huge, huge amount of money, presumably, from Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Had, keys to the kingdom of the industry and chose to go the route of his passion, which is genre films and horror movies. Mm-hmm. So he's been in horror movies, he's produced horror movies, he started a production company, I think, the one that came out with Color Out of Space. And it's insane. I love that. I respect the hell out of him. So yeah.
Totally.
Yep. So yeah. So that's cool. That's good.
Yeah, I loved the episode, and nice. It made me want to read the book and watch the movie again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we will do that soon. Ride those Kingcast coattails. It was actually really exciting. I have somewhat of a... We should just change this to the Kingcast podcast. So Eric Vespi, one of the hosts of that, tweeted that he had just gotten off the phone, presumably for a long interview that he did with the Duffer Brothers from Stranger Things.
Oh, nice.
And someone said oh, are they going to be on the Kingcast? And when I saw that, I was like, that just clicked with me. That would be really cool to just hear them just talk about the influence of King on their work.
Yeah.
Because Stranger Things is Stephen King essentially.
Oh, totally.
And then so Eric Vespi responded to that guy and said, I pitched it. We'll see. And so, yeah.
I hope that happens.
Me too.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's my kind of check-in, I guess. I don't really have much else in way of check-ins. I don't remember if we recorded an episode of Tower Junkies since this happened, but you were a guest on my solo podcast, Anthology.
Yeah.
We talked about 7 Days in May.
We did.
Yeah. How was that experience?
That was great. I really dug that movie.
Nice. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. And it was exciting to have you on my other show.
Yes.
My one show that's not your show also. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and kind of in the same vein, I was a guest on the Spark of Madness podcast to talk about Blast from the Past, the 90s Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone
It's
movie.
a great movie.
It's such a great movie, and that was a lot of fun to chat with those guys. So check that out at Spark of Madness. I'll put a link and everything in the show notes. There is added incentive that it is available on the YouTube, so you can see my face, but it is covered by a giant microphone that I had. Not intentional, it's just how my mic stand is and everything. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So check that out. Spark of Madness. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys check that out. So, Stephen King news, though, Tiny.
Yes.
Did you hear the news that I have not revealed to you yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have to know what the news is.
March 2nd, 2021, a new novel from Stephen King.
Ooh.
Oh, have you not heard about this?
No.
Okay, cool. So, it's called Later. It is a hard case crime book. So, like, the Colorado Kid was released in that, and Joyland was the big one of that. So it's like kind of a, I don't know, presumably going to be a smaller kind of paperback. So
Gotcha.
I'll just read the description from StephenKing.com. Sometimes growing up means facing your demons. The son of a struggling single mother, Jamie Conklin, just wants an ordinary childhood. But Jamie is no ordinary child. Born with an unnatural ability his mom urges him to keep secret, Jamie can see that no one else can see and learn. What? Oh, okay. Jamie can see what no one else can see and learn what no one else can learn. But the cost of using this ability is higher than Jamie can imagine, as he discovers when an NYPD detective draws him into the pursuit of a killer who has threatened to strike from beyond the grave. So Stephen King commented about it, saying that, I love the hard case format. In this story, combining a boy who sees beyond our world and strong elements of crime and suspense seemed a perfect fit. So
Cool.
So it goes on to say that the press release goes on to say that Later will be published initially as a paperback original featuring an original cover painting by Paul Mann. This edition will be followed by a limited edition hardcover that will feature 2 new cover paintings by award-winning artist Gregory Manches, one for Later itself and one for a fictitious novel within the novel that features prominently in the plot. An ebook edition of Later will also be available. So I wonder if they'll do an audiobook at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't read Colorado Kid or Joyland, so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Joyland would be fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was fun. I read that. It's a really good, like, coming of age story at its core. Mm-hmm. And it's, it was, the main character is this teenager who is working a summer job at an amusement park, and it's the summer after he just got dumped. And I read it the week after I had broken things off with someone that I was dating for a little while.
Okay.
So that was a really interesting kind of confluence of events. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So that's coming out March 2nd, 2021, I think.
Okay. Always good news.
Yeah. So no other news or check-ins, really.
Yeah, not for me.
Do you want to go into our review of Revival?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we are going to review Revival. So as we normally do, we'll do a spoiler or a non-spoiler and then a spoiler review. So courtesy of StephenKing.com, Revival, if I can get it to load properly, was published in November of 2014. And here's a synopsis from StephenKing.com. A dark and electrifying novel about addiction, fanaticism, and what might exist on the other side of life. In a small New England town over half a century ago, a shadow falls over a small boy playing with his toy soldiers. Jamie Morton looks up to see a striking man, the new minister Charles Jacobs. Along with his beautiful wife, will transform the local church. The men and boys are all a bit in love with Mrs. Jacobs. The women and girls feel the same way about Reverend Jacobs, including Jamie's mother and beloved sister Claire. With Jamie, the Reverend shares a deeper bond based on a secret obsession. When tragedy strikes the Jacobs family, this charismatic preacher curses God, mocks all religious belief, and is banished from the shocked town. Jamie has demons of his own. Wed to his guitar from the age of 13, he plays in bands across the country, living the nomadic lifestyle of bar, band, rock, and roll while fleeing from his family's horrific loss. I'm going to stop reading it. It's very long-winded.
It is.
And I know that I had notes on here because there were references that I wanted to make. So anyway, Tiny, it was announced some months ago that Mr. Mike Flanagan was working on adapting Revival. So that's one of the reasons why we read it so recently. So, Tiny, how did you feel in non-spoiler terms about Revival? And before that, actually, what was your relationship to Revival beforehand? What did you know about it, and how did you approach it in terms of expectations?
I really didn't have expectations at all. I didn't know really anything about this novel.
Nice.
I mean, I got the release of the novel way off.
Right.
So I thought it was more recent than it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really didn't have any expectations, and I didn't even really know much about it. So I ended up really, really liking it, though.
Nice.
I just think as always, the character work was great, and I feel like it starts out one way, and it's like very wholesome, and it just morphs into this completely other thing, and it's really dark, but it has moments of hope throughout it, and it really just comes down to this evolutionary relationship between the two main characters that really drives the narrative and drives the plot, and just takes it to a really, really wild place.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have, having no expectations, obviously, I didn't know where it was going to go, but I didn't know I was going to like it this much, and I just hadn't really heard anything about it, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be a really compelling book or not, or, a favorite. I don't know, but yeah, I ended up just really, really liking it.
Nice. It's interesting because I kind of had a similar and not so similar experience with it. I kind of read it on a whim, or I listened to the audiobook earlier this year, like in, I don't know, January or February, because I had a long drive. It was February. And I had a long drive, and I listened to it, and I enjoyed it fine enough. My expectations going into it is that I knew it had something to do with religion and like big-ass tent revivals and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I didn't have much knowledge going into it, but I did know that a lot of people loved it. So I kind of had that kind of going for it in my first listen of it. And I was just kind of like, fine. Like, this is a very solid Stephen King novel, on that first viewing, or first listen, I should say. And then I listened to it again in preparation for this episode, and I actually liked it quite a bit more. It kind of clicked together a little bit better for me. Something that I really appreciate and just really, really liked about it was that it has this lifespan throughout it. Like, it spans such a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the story that is laid out by King in this book takes decades, and it's like, it's just really really impressive the way that it just spans that amount of time and does keeps our attention and everything.
Right.
Yeah. And what was interesting is that back in like February or whatever, when I first listened to it, I had reviewed it, like, had a little blurb on Goodreads when I finished it, and so I'm just going to read it. My review on Goodreads was, what an interesting confluence of events that led me to watch Frankenstein from 1931 and Color Out of Space from this year, 2020, while I was reading Revival. King was clearly inspired by Mary Shelley and H.P. Lovecraft here, and ended up making a unique meld of the two, along with imparting his own ruminations on aging, grief, and lost/dark faith. At times, it's kind of a mesh of ground he has previously covered in the likes of Pet Sematary, but it still packs quite a strong punch. So that's what I thought of it on my first listen of it, and yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Nice.
So, should we go into specifics?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Still in non-spoilers, what parts of the story spoke to you? Like, how did you feel about Jamie's whole arc through the book.
Yeah, so I think what really drew me in was the I guess the wholesomeness and the relatability of Jamie and Pastor Jacobs. Like, just right off the bat, they get along so well, and like I feel like I was reading it with the intention or the thought that like something's going to go all horribly wrong.
Yeah,
between the two of them.
Oh, I was going to say
right, but like I didn't predict what was going to happen or anything. But like I had the feeling that like this is too good for two Stephen King characters. Like this is too wholesome, too enjoyable. Too much joy in this relationship. Something's going to throw a wrench in it. And I think that added to the tragedy because it's so wholesome and relatable and enjoyable and just sweet. And then the way that it fractures over the decades and just gets worse and worse every time they interact with each other is just more and more heartbreaking every time. And,
absolutely.
And just the effect of the tragedy on Pastor Jacobs, it takes a long time to get there till you see like the full impact of how that just ruined his life and ruined him as a person.
Yeah.
It's by the end, it's just like, it's really horrific how much it ruined him as a person.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is that it's from the perspective of Jamie. And not only is it from the perspective of Jamie, it's from the perspective of Jamie at different phases of his life.
Right.
And so we don't get a seat into or a view into Pastor Jacob's transformation except for just bits and pieces here and there. And we get like little breadcrumbs of his plan and his intentions and everything. But that's something that King is, I feel like in past books hasn't done quite, it isn't his strength. Like laying these breadcrumbs and seeing where they lead. That's not necessarily his strength. And maybe it's because he's dipped into the kind of crime novel genre recently, but for some reason it just worked really well here. Yeah. And I think it's mostly just because he's telling that intimate story of Pastor Jacobs through the lens of someone who is broken and is someone who is struggling daily with like his substance abuses and everything. Right. And just how his life turned out in Jamie, referring to Jamie. So I don't know. I just think it's a really interesting book for King. And I liked it too. Yeah. I think it's interesting because we don't really get, it's almost like a James Bond villain type thing where like we don't really get the full scope of his plan until the end of like the climax of the novel. Right. And I really didn't have a full clue of like how far it was going to go or like where it was going to go. You know, I think it's pretty safe to assume that most of the readers were under the assumption that his ultimate plan involved something with the tragedy of losing his wife and son. Yeah. Right. But the depth that it went to was so extreme and just so disturbing. I didn't know it was going to go that far. And that's what made it unique. And that's what set it apart for me is that it was just so the depth of his corruption, I guess. Yeah. And like what he was willing to do to get there because of this horrible tragedy early in his life. Right. It's just really good storytelling. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And as far as like, it kind of seems like a mesh of so many different King isms and things that King does well. Like this feels like part of it feels like, Pet Sematary, obviously. Yeah. And then it's infused with this like just visceral like horror at the end. We'll talk about that in spoilers, but it was so drastic. Like that ending is so extreme to me that honestly, that first time that I listened to the audiobook, it it almost had an adverse effect with me because it kind of felt like it was just too much too fast, and it just felt like it was just overwhelming to me. And like going back and listening to it again, knowing the context of what it was leading to, made me enjoy the ending a lot more the second time. Not that I thought it was bad the first time; it just didn't hook me as well as the second time did. So yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of loss.
There is, yeah.
In this, which we can skate around a little bit, but the use of miracles and the way that the family, in particular Jamie's family, kind of renounces some miracles to an extent. Like, I'm talking about his brothers kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I don't really have a thread to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting. I think what that moment or that conflict really set up was Jamie's kind of fracture from his family, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Because like most of the members of his family sort of separated from their faith, I think.
Yeah.
Around that time. And then he stuck with it a little bit, or he was so into it that it was harder for him to let it go, I think.
Yeah.
And they just disagreed so heavily on such a impactful, these separate impactful things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it sort of exemplified Jamie's isolationism, and how he's a very isolated character throughout the whole book, really.
Yeah, and part of that's just his like substance abuse problems and everything as well, kind of distancing himself from himself to an extent. So
right.
It's like this dual kind of isolation that he has, both from his family and from himself. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the book, we learn about the just tragedies and just general loss that his family endures throughout it. And like it's something that King does particularly well. In that he does this thing that he kind of goes back to from time to time in his writing, but where Jamie is he's mourning the loss of a sibling. I'll say that. I will be vague. But the way that the sibling died is something that haunts him and that he like wants to correct.
Right.
And so there are moments where he's thinking about it and he's like, if he could have just stopped it, or if this things went differently. So like that's something that King kind of explores in his writing quite a bit. This kind of idea of not necessarily full on reversing something, but just regret and like not being there to stop something from happening. Where like the pain of knowing that if you were instrumental in a situation, that you could have possibly prevented something. Like that's something that kind of recurs throughout a lot of his writing, and in the Dark Tower series, obviously.
Right.
So I don't know. I just thought I liked it here. So did that? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think it drives home the point of isolationism. He's so, I don't know. I feel like throughout the entire novel, he never really gets close to anybody. Right. I mean, even like he's, by the time he's in his 50s, he's single still. And he kind of has these flingy relationships, and he doesn't even own a home. Like he's pretty, professionally successful.
Yeah.
Not like he's like a rich guy, but I'm saying like he's successful, but he just like doesn't even own a home or anything. Yeah. And
he kind of has a nomadic kind of life.
Right. He's not a very commitment heavy person. But yeah, it influenced his character, or drove that character really well.
I agree. And that was, in terms of like the relationships that he has, like the kind of flingy relationships that he has, that's one part of the book where it disconnected from me. Like I wasn't that invested in like I'm going to have trouble recalling it at this point, but his like kind of casual relationship with the recording studio, like
her daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just felt like kind of an afterthought in the plot. Like it didn't really have that much bearing in the in the plot or in his story specifically. She
was a bit of a deus ex machina.
Yeah.
For him to kind of research stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And it didn't do a lot for him.
Right.
It made him look cool that he was some 50-year-old guy hooking up with some young black girl.
Yeah. It didn't connect with me.
Not that I don't know that King was really going for that, but
yeah. Or maybe, because, I mean, he kind of did the same thing with Mr. Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's
he did, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he has a lot of his main characters will hook up with good-looking chicks. I mean,
yeah, like one of his early, like Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
The main character hooks up with a fan, a youngish fan in the town.
Right.
And that always, ever since I think it was the Castle Rock TV podcast that really good podcast that kind of went away after a few episodes, but they reviewed Salem's Lot, and I think it was them, they talked about how much like Stephen King it was that the main character just falls in love with this woman that just adores him as a huge like fan of his writing, because like it's like he's a rock star.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I mean he's like now it's kind of an actual rock star in Revival to an extent.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
a bit of a recurring theme, I guess. Yeah,
I'll say so. Yeah. So how about Jacobs? His arc, as mysterious as it was, in a weird way, I was captivated by him, which I think was the intention, and it worked well given his storyline and everything. So, in non-spoilers, how'd you feel about Reverend Jacobs?
Well, I think, again, he starts out early in the novel with such a... I just keep coming back to the word wholesome. He has like an idyllic life, really. He's a really passionate guy. And you just instantly like him and stuff like that. And then just what's most fascinating about him is that I think it's after the tragedy, he really, what King wrote him really well, because, and like you said, like through the lens of Jamie, I think that was such a great idea, because he feels like he's basically, anytime he interacts with Jamie or anybody, it's like he's faking his way through it.
Yeah.
Because he's just so consumed by that tragedy and correcting it or finding a way to overcome it.
Right.
That like nothing else really deserves his attention. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like when he's having conversations with Jamie specifically, but even anyone, he's just very detached and kind of putting on a facade, because really his thoughts and his emotions and his efforts are focused on correcting this great tragedy in his life. Yeah. And it makes him incredibly selfish.
Yeah.
Which we find out at the end of the novel, the repercussions of his actions throughout the novel have massive implications. I think you could even go so far as to say it was a little evil.
Yeah.
What he was doing. I mean, I guess maybe that's a stretch, but he acts with total reckless abandon, just with disregard for everyone else. But he does so behind the curtain, I guess, is a way to say it. He's not like some blatantly villainous evil guy.
Yeah.
But the repercussions of his actions have huge implications.
Yeah, he's the hero of his story.
Right.
And I think it's written really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go into spoilers?
Yeah, I was kind of dancing around that because of spoilers, so yeah.
Okay, well, we are going to go into spoilers for Revival, but first, Tiny, did we do this before spoilers or after? Did this break into your top 19?
I don't know. I should have looked at that before I got here.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that. Maybe. I'd have to look at my notes.
Okay.
Let me see here. Yeah, I'm not sure if I could bump anything from my top 19.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to do that for this novel. But, King has written 60 novels.
Yeah.
This is in the top half for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a top 30 for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good. I dug it.
Sweet. So when I first listened to it, I put it at number 18. And I actually, when I listened to it the second time, I bumped it up to number 17.
Sweet.
Yep.
Did you bump anything out of your list for it?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Let me actually check. I should be able to find that pretty quickly.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember if I bumped anything from it.
Gotcha.
Okay, that was me stalling. Check. I think Gerald's game.
Okay.
Must have gotten bumped, so yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool. So we're going to go into spoilers for Revival, so if you haven't read it, come back and listen to us later, or, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, we're going to go into spoilers for Revival. Here's a little bit of music to break up the part of the episode, and when we come back, spoilers for Revival.
The good book warns us to beware of false prophets, with all their signs and wonders. But even if you believe God can heal like lightning, in the end, not even your faith can save you. Revival, new from Stephen King.
Well, to kind of drive or finish my thought or drive home the point I was making before spoilers, I don't think you can fully make the statement or the claim that Jacobs is evil, because I don't think he fully understood what he was doing to people and the possible repercussions that could happen as a result of it. Because, after everything, after he passes away and his experiment is successful,
right,
so many people either die or go crazy or something horrible. Most of them died, right? If I remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they ended up dying.
Yeah.
And we're talking about hundreds, maybe even thousands of people that he's touched over the years. And I don't think
such a legacy.
I know, right? I don't think he was doing those things with the knowledge that it was going to kill all those people.
I agree. And this is a really interesting kind of path to go down, because I agree with the premise of your idea.
Okay, yeah.
I agree with that in theory, but I would say that there's a certain type of evil that goes into this man literally playing God and messing with something he does not understand and using human subjects to increase his knowledge of the actions that he's doing. So I think that there is an evil inherent with that, but I don't think he was acting in a maliciously evil way.
Right.
It was a more negligible.
Passive evil.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that it was all...
negligence is a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Negligible.
I think that the way that he conducted himself was not so striking.
Nice.
So... yeah, maybe if he did the electric slide a couple times.
Oh my god.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I also kind of related to the novel in a way, because I am an electrician.
Oh yeah.
In a way, I'm a wannabe electrician.
Nice.
I'm a low voltage guy only, but yeah. So that I found that stuff interesting, just technically.
It's not the size of the voltage; it's the motion of the current.
Jesus. It's the amps that'll kill you.
There we go. Jesus. Yeah, and I related to it because I am a washed up rock star? No. I don't know. I used to play with toy soldiers as a kid. I never even did that even.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played, one of my memories of, like, being a kid was when it snowed really heavily. This must have been in 1993. You'll know why here in a second. When it snowed, like when they plow and they shovel and everything, they have mounds of snow that are kind of off to the side. So in our apartment complex, I had this image in my head when listening to the audiobook and Jamie's first encounter with Jacobs. But like as a kid, I distinctly remember playing with those big mounds of snow and like carving out tunnels in them.
Oh yeah.
And putting above it, like scratching into the snow, a sign that said Jurassic Park. So
nice.
Yeah. So that resonated with me.
That's funny.
But something else that kind of resonated with me in a big way was the death. Like Jamie's depiction or his recounting of the family, like the death of the family, essentially, like his mother and sister in particular.
Yeah.
So his mother in particular kind of hit me in a very interesting way, and I don't, because it's been months. So in January or February, I think it was January that I started listening to it, but I had a long drive. And on the way to my destination, I think, I stopped at a place to get snacks and stuff and gas up and everything. And I'm listening to it, and this place that I stopped at was Marion, Indiana, which is where my dad is interred.
Right.
At a cemetery there. Mm-hmm. And so as I'm leaving Marion, going to my destination, I listen to the part, I'm at the part in the book where Jamie is recounting the experience of saying goodbye to his mother, and the description and just the pain and the mournfulness of it was like, it took me right back to when my dad passed away.
Yeah.
It was so exact. Like, because he describes it as like being in the room with her and like listening to her like last breath and everything. And like, I mean, that I was there. Like, it lined up so much with my experience, and I just felt like I felt really weird. Like, it was a really weird thing.
I bet.
So anyway, this is a weird segue. So how did you feel about like the depictions of death and mourning and stuff, Tiny? Do you have any cool stories?
God. Well, I like, again, it's just the transition is so interesting, because I was so hooked in the beginning because of the two wholesome characters and their cute little relationship and stuff like that. Yeah. And it just gets so dark from there.
Yeah.
Like there's no happiness.
Accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The accident, and then like there's just like no happiness after that.
So bleak.
After that moment, so many characters die. I mean, he does. Obviously, like, there's stuff where he falls in love for the first time, and
right.
That's very sweet and nice and all that, and he discovers a love for music and plays in rock bands, and later in the novel he reunites with some of his brothers and stuff like that, and that's all great and wholesome, but I feel like there's just this shadow of negativity over his life that ultimately takes over everything and drives him, and it's really sad, and it's like, again, you sort of like I talked about Pastor Jacobs kind of faking his way through everything. I feel like Jamie's doing the same thing to an extent. Yeah, like he has this thing in the back of his mind that's just he can't get away from, and he can't entirely get away from ever. Right, and I feel like that's made him an isolated, distant person to anyone of substance in his life. Wow. Yeah, so that's a good point. It's just tragic for both of them for kind of the same reason. They're both driven by this one thing. But again, I think Jacobs is completely consumed by it, and he doesn't care what he has to do to realize his goal to correct that. Yeah. Whereas Jamie is just he's different in that he wants to get away from it, I feel like, but he just can't. Yeah. It's interesting because they are just two sides of the same coin, in that they've experienced heavy loss and everything. Right. And it's like, to kind of piggyback off of your point, it's like Jacobs, his take on it, his attitude toward it is that he has to fix it. It has to be in his power to correct the pain that is in his life and everything. Whereas Jamie is just drowning in it instead of like that. And I think that combination is why they work so well together later in it, in terms of being almost adversarial until they are very adversarial. Right. It just feels like
it's interesting because we are seeing it through Jamie's perspective, of course, and then by the end of it, it's like we have been with Jamie this whole time as he has, half unbeknownst to him and half beknownst to him, been just spun into this web. Like, he has been caught in this web, and he's just, like, he doesn't know it, but I'm referring to Jacob's web, that he's orchestrated things so that Jamie would be his, like, vessel to enact his plans.
Right.
It's very calculated and everything, and it's a really interesting way for the story to progress. But I do want to talk about the tragedy early in the book with Jacob's wife and son. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, driving through Indiana and listening to that, the accident of that, it was just horrific.
Yeah.
Just that was horrifying. Like, just the actual, like, description and everything, and the tragedy of it, the event and everything. But what I found so much, an added piece of just compelling storytelling and tragedy and the emotional horror that I love out of a Stephen King novel, was Jamie's mother having to deliver the news.
Yeah.
Just that was just gut-wrenching.
Mm-hmm. And like the description of his scream.
Yes.
Like I could picture it, or audibly picture it, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know, that was very descriptive writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Do you want to kind of jump ahead and talk about the big finale?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, as I said, we've been with Jamie as he's been kind of caught in this web and everything. And then we get just this incredibly vivid description of this Lovecraftian ending.
Yeah.
Where the, like, portal to the afterlife has been opened. Mm-hmm. And holy crap.
Yeah.
Just, I have in my head such a vivid picture.
Mm-hmm.
And it is horrifying.
Yeah.
How did you feel about this ending to this particular King novel?
Well, you know, Stephen King's always hit or miss. You never know if he's gonna like really knock one out of the park at the end and deliver. And this is one of the times when he did, because this one, like this part of this book is going to stick with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was very Lovecraftian, and it also made me think of like Clive Barker, his whole, gosh, I can't think of the series,
the book,
Hellraiser series, basically. That whole afterlife, basically a whole other universe that exists just in darkness and in pain, and I can't even, you can't even really describe it. Really, it's just one of those just abject horror type things. It made me think of that pretty vividly, but yeah, like just it's so. It's just horrific, the descriptions of everything and the way the characters react to it. And you know, Jamie was already a pretty tragic and somewhat solemn character, and this realization, it's like, I don't know how he doesn't just like kill himself, or like, I don't know how he goes on and how he can be happy anymore, especially when I think his, like, he has this really charming moment where he reunites with his family, and his basically infant niece latches onto him and like falls in love with him, and it's really adorable and sweet. And then after he has this experience, she doesn't want to be anywhere near him,
right?
And it's just like every ounce of happiness is just stolen from him because of witnessing this other dimension, if you will. I don't even know what you call it.
Yeah. Do you think it's the afterlife? Like,
I guess. I don't know.
Like, is King going that dark to say that this is what everyone's coming to in this world, and
what's in store for all of us?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if he's going that far, but I mean, that's in the universe of Revival,
right?
That's what happens, and yeah, man, it's just awful.
And can I ask you a loaded question?
Okay,
maybe not loaded question. I don't know, but how excited are you to see, to potentially see Mike Flanagan adapt this? I
know. As I was reading that,
yeah,
I was like, man, I bet not just Stephen King, but Flanagan's going to knock this out of the park too.
Absolutely,
it's going to be great.
Just on a visual, oh my god,
visually, yeah, it's going to be wild to see what he pulls off.
It's going to be really, really interesting. Do you have any actors in mind?
This is super random.
Okay.
Not in mind, but like the person I was picturing. I got to look up the actor's name.
Okay.
The person I was picturing as Jamie was crap. Hang on, I'm looking it up right now. I can't think of his name.
What is he in?
He's Ponyboy from The Outsiders.
Oh, Ralph Macchio? Or was he?
No, he was Johnny.
Okay.
He was in 24 too, as a much older guy. He's who I pictured as like older Jamie at the end.
Oh, C. Thomas Howell?
C. Thomas Howell.
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea why.
That's interesting.
As like older Jamie, he just popped into my head for no reason whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, I really can't explain it. But then for Pastor Jacobs, I really pictured, because by the end of the novel, he's like in his 80s.
Yeah, he's very frail.
Very old and frail. I pictured Guy Pearce.
Oh.
Because of Prometheus. Yeah, like okay. I just kept picturing Guy Pearce like
interesting
as old Peter Wayland in Prometheus.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's weird because I pictured a xenomorph for that's dumb.
But I mean that wouldn't work because I think Guy Pearce is a little too old to play the young.
Yeah, I agree.
Young Jacobs. Yeah. But again, Jamie does have that everyman quality about him though that Stephen King employs so often with his main characters. You know, your Stu Redmonds and your other guys.
Yeah. Oh God. Wow. Yeah, everyman characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's tons of actors who could play him, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else about Revival?
No. Not that I can think. Well, another casting thing was she's I can't think of the actress's name again. This is bad. I can picture her. She's been in 2 other Stephen King productions. She was
Sarah Gadon.
Yeah, the from 11/22/63. Yeah, she'd be great as Jacob's wife. I think.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
I was honestly just thinking that. Yeah.
She's so pretty.
She is. Yeah.
Just she's the kind of woman I picture like all the boys falling in love with and having crushes on. Like she's that kind of. Yeah. She's an amazing actress too. I'm not trying to take anything away from her creatively, but she's very pretty, and she has that look to her, that quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, that's our review of Revival.
Yes.
So I have some notes. A couple of things. King/Dark Tower connection.
Okay.
So we would be remiss if we didn't mention that the band names that Jamie plays with. I think it's when he's in high school. His band was originally called the Gunslingers. Yeah. And they eventually changed their name to Chrome Roses. And then later in the book, Jacobs, when he's telling Jamie about his history and how he's gone to all these carnivals and everything, he references Joyland, the amusement park.
Oh, okay. Joyland. Nice.
And then early in the book, when they talk about the race car that Jamie's father is restoring or something and whatever, they put the number 19 on it.
Yep.
And then let's see. couple of other things. Okay. So, the band that plays at Terry's party is called the Castle Rock All-Stars. And Jacobs references, he uses the term an unfound door when telling Jamie about the special electricity. Mm-hmm. And then finally, when Jamie I think it's when he kind of wakes up, when Jamie kind of wakes up, maybe it's after the procedure, I think. I don't know. But he asks Jamie where he is, and he asks Jacobs where he is, and I think Jacob says, life is a wheel and always comes back around to where it started. Or I think Jamie actually says that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like cause a wheel.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, so that is our review of Revival. Any parting thoughts, Tiny?
Can't wait to see how Mike Flanagan adapts it.
Me too. And I was going to say, maybe we can revisit the book. I don't know. We'll see. It could be years, so who knows? But anyway, that's our review of Revival. Let us know what you thought. Oh, by the way, people let us know what they thought.
Please do.
Yeah, well, people did.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, well, sort of. So 2 months ago, I tweeted, this is June 9th, I tweeted, "Finish re-listening to Revival by Stephen King. Tiny and I are going to talk about it after we finish up our Castle Rock reviews. Feel free to share your thoughts about Revival here." And 2 people responded.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, so Dermot responded and said, "Really liked it. Such an engaging book throughout, and that ending was terrifying." And then Mo replied and said, "I really liked it too. The homage to Mary Shelley and Frankenstein, clap, clap. I was expecting something completely different, but I really liked what it turned out to be." And actually, on that note, 2 things. One is that it felt very much like a Frankenstein kind of thing. Very gothic horror in that respect as well. Mm-hmm. And then also there's a named reference to Mary Shelley, and it's, I can't remember the specifics, but the woman kind of at the center of everything was a woman named Mary who went on to marry someone with the last name Shelley, so she became Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. Not the same, like just a homage in the name. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about like the kind of mad scientist aspect of it.
We didn't.
Which is like one of my favorite devices or like character devices ever. I love mad scientists. I think it's because he's driven by tragedy, so it's not quite as like passion or obsession driven. It's more tragedy, and it's different, I guess. That kind of overtakes it. I think of like Altered States is one of my favorite.
Oh yeah,
the movie, the William Hurt movie. Like I love that movie, and this, I feel like the characters are so different that it qualifies, I guess, but it's not the crux of the character, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it as well. So
yeah.
Okay, well, that'll do it for this episode of Tower Junkies. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know what you thought of Revival. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found, of course. Find our other shows at Obsessive Viewer and Anthology, my solo podcast, Exploring the Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer, and Obsessive Viewer is just a kind of broad movie and TV podcast thing. I do want to announce that I just realized today that all 3 of our podcasts are available on Spotify. Kind of a nice surprise there.
Sweet.
So so if you're on Spotify, check it out there. And also check out obsessiveviewer.com, where I have written a bunch of different reviews. I'm currently reviewing the Godzilla Showa era Criterion Collection movies, so check that out, obsessiveviewer.com. And I'm also reviewing some movies from Indie Film Fest here in Indianapolis that is currently going right now, and some new release movies and stuff. So a lot of stuff to check out. I'll put links to everything in the show notes. And Tiny, any parting thoughts before we sign out?
No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon-exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you, and enjoy.
I saw a thing the other day about how they think commercial real estate is just going to plummet.
Oh, shit.
And it's going to, like, wreck the economy.
That doesn't surprise me, because, have you seen... sad news too. Comedy Sports on Mass Ave, they've left their building. Like they
Really?
had to like leave their building. Like they're still a thing,
Okay.
and they're still going to do that. And eventually they are going to find new places. But like they were in that building for like 20 years.
Yeah. That's a shame.
Yeah, and like that raises questions of like, okay, Mass Ave has always been like a touch point for the arts in Indianapolis. And like if venues keep losing their lease or whatever, like they keep leaving or whatever, like what is that for the art community
Right.
on Mass Ave? So
Yeah. Oh, what the hell are they going to do with those buildings? I mean, like,
yeah.
like the Chase Tower, like, what? I mean, you gonna knock it down? Like,
No.
oh god,
The Obsessive Viewer Studios.
oh my god,
We could have hundreds of shows.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Tower Junkies is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to TowerJunkiesPod.com/archive. You can also like our Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod and follow us on Twitter at TowerJunkiesPod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is just a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at obsessiveviewer.com and on Twitter at obsessiveviewer. You can also find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and OV Anthology Pod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Music for the podcast is provided with permission from Fingers T on YouTube. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
Kitty! She's just waiting for me to move so she can steal my seat.
I see.
Yeah. I didn't raise a seat thief. I have not said that in your presence yet, have I?
No.
Okay. Like when because I'll get up and she will like come over and like lay down right here every time.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, Pizza, like I'll hold her and be like, Pizza, why are you so mean to me? And then I'll like look at her very sternly and be like, I didn't raise a seat thief. So yeah.
Giz does the same thing to me.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, little shit.
I guess because like the seat's just warm, so he's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But she's my little baby. Okay. So anyway, Later's coming out in March, so that's exciting.
Yep.